Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 17 in the book of 1 Corinthians. And today I'm going to ask the question, what is the posture of a Christian? When we run into a Christian, physically and spiritually, what should they look like? What are their characteristics? So we're going to ask what may happen and what it might look like for them on the outside, and what should be happening and what they should look like on the inside. We're going to get that from a passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, where Paul is yelling at the Corinthians a little bit, and he is going to use irony, and he's going to use some tricky language, a little bit of hyperbole to get their attention and to make his point that what you're looking at like as young Christians is not the ideal. And he's going to describe for them what it really looks like to follow Christ, then admonish them a little bit of, and then to finally say, follow me rather than your knuckleheadedness. So here we go. This is from a passage that talks about the boasting. The Corinthians are a boasting people. And I'll start with verse 7 from chapter 4. This is the verse we talked about yesterday. What do you have that you did not receive? For if then you received it, why do you boast as if you did not receive it? So this is the problem with the Corinthians, is they're boasting and they're posturing as boasters. And then he's going to use irony here in verse 8. Already you have all you want, which of course is not true. Already you have become rich. Without us you have become kings. And would that you did reign, so that we might share the rule with you. So he's speaking hyperbolically, saying you think you have everything, you're already kings, you're already rich, you don't need anything, and it's not true. Now he's going to flip the switch here and talk about what being a real Christian is like. Verse 9, for I think that God has exhibited us apostles as last of all, like men sentenced to death or appointed to death, because we have become a spectacle to the world, to angels and to men. We are fools for Christ's sake. Here's the ironical language again. But you are wise in Christ. We are weak, but you are strong. You are held in honor, but we in disrepute. It's going to go back to the apostles again here. To this present hour we hunger and thirst. We are poorly dressed and buffeted and homeless. And we labor, working with our hands. When reviled, we bless. When persecuted, we endure. When slandered, we entreat. We have become and are still like the scum of the world, the refuge of all things. Verse 14, I do not write these things to make you ashamed, but to admonish you as my beloved children. For though you have countless guides in Christ, you do not have many fathers. For I became your father in Christ Jesus through the gospel. I urge you then, be imitators of me. So we see here that he is using hyperbolic language, comparing the Corinthian posture, which is boastful and divisive and immature, to the correct posture of being a Christian, which is not like that. He's describing what it's really like to follow Christ. So he describes him and his apostles as appointed to death. Yikes, sentenced to death as a spectacle. Recently I've been in some art museums, and it's a frequent thing to depict in a painting the spectacle of being a Christian, the sort of the craziness of being a Christian, the radicalness of being a Christian, even by their martyrdom or holding on till the end, or the suffering that they have gone through, or maybe the physical things, but also even the spiritual burden that they're bearing. So this is a frequent topic of art. Look for it next time you go to a museum. So he's describing, again, Christianity. So fools for Christ's sake. These are guys that are hungry and thirsting and have doing some suffering, poorly dressed, poorly treated, buffeted about the world, smacked about a little bit, but still working hard. And when they're being reviled, so this is what the world's doing, is reviling. The Christianity, not in reviling back, is blessing. And when they're persecuted, not persecuting back, enduring. And slandering, spoken of, rather than misspeaking of, to entreat, call people higher. And he says the final purpose of what he's doing here, in sort of making fun of the Corinthians, using a little bit of a hyperbole here to compare them to what being a good Christian is, to show them what the real posture of a Christian is. He's trying to not make them ashamed, which is like an end point of shame. Here, bad, end of story. What he's doing is trying to use this mechanism of using words, ironically here a little bit, to admonish them. Why? Because he wants to call them higher. You're part of the family, and you guys should be doing better. You can do better. You can have a better posture, and you can grow up a little bit, and you can mature. So what it might look like to be a Christian, then he pulls out the father card. He says, look, you're my beloved children. You're boastful and divisive, and you're in need of correction, and I am your father. I have the authority. I started your church, for heaven's sakes. And follow me and be imitators of me. So what might happen, and what might it look like on the outside to be a Christian? Well, it might not be a pretty picture, as Paul's saying. There might be some reviling and misspeaking and persecution and slander. But what should be happening on the inside? And what's happening on your inside, Mr. Corinthian, is not very good. Rather than boastful and pride, it should be one of receiving blessing and enduring and entreating, not ending up with boasting and division like you guys. Remember, what do you have that you didn't receive? So what is the posture of Christianity? What does it look like to be a Christian? Not prideful, not boastful, but you're probably going to look like the scum a little bit. Spectacles, maybe persecutions, but inside, awe, gratefulness, humility, ready for work, following leadership, and following Christ and following the leaders that he's put. So let's be ready to be imitating, to be humble, to be grateful, maybe to be misunderstood, to be treated like some scum, but know that we're family and beloved and fathered eternally, and fathered here by the leaders God has put here. Paul is trying to teach his beloved Corinthians and correct them and warn them and admonish, not for shame, but for maturity. So today we learned what is the posture of Christianity. Thanks for listening.